Remco Evenepoel has openly stated that he's wanted to do both the Giro and the Tour next year. And I'm pretty sure the majority of us do know that the Giro Tour double is by far the hardest double of the year. Harder than the Giro Volta double, and most definitely harder than the Tour Volta double. But should he do the Giro? Should he just focus on the Tour? Or should he just abandon the Tour completely next year and just do the Giro? Well, today, that is exactly what I'm going to be explaining. Now, first things first, let's just talk about the Tour next year first before we get into the Giro itself. And the Tour next year looks to be one of the most exciting years and most definitely the hardest Tour in years. I mean, you got already Pogačar and Vingegaard, who are the two most likely winners. But then you add Primož Roglič into the mix, and as long as if Roglič can stay on his bike, he looks to be the favorite for third place. So even if Remco does decide to do the Tour, which he openly said he plans to, he's most likely not going to finish on the podium unless if Roglič falls off his bike or has a really bad day, like how Remco did on the Tourmalet and the Volta last year. And those aren't the only climbers who are competing in the Tour next year. We still got Carlos Rodriguez, who is a young guy for Ineos and looks to be their future, but we don't really have the biggest sample size for him, in my opinion, so it's going to be tough to say if he's going to be able to compete for that podium position. But it's not just Carlos Rodriguez. We still got Simon Yates, who finished 4th in the Tour de France last year, and he looks to probably repeat that. But again, it's probably going to be difficult for him, and he's probably only going to compete for the top 5. And it's not just him. Also, Joao Almeida, I believe, said he wants to do the Tour next year, and he's probably going to be either super domestique for Tadej, or he's going to be a co-leader, just like how Pogačar and Yates were last year. And I do believe that Yates is going to do the Tour again next year, so that's already 3 UAE guys who is probably going to blow up the entire race. And also Jumbo-Visma, who definitely has the strongest team, and they're definitely going to next year if Wout van Aert does decide to do the Tour, which he already confirmed as Giro d'Italia. But if he does do GC in the Giro, he's going to have to lose a ton of weight, and that would be a massive hit to Jumbo-Visma, but that is going to be in another video. And we also got Richard Carapaz, who in my opinion is an underrated pick for a top 5 position in the Tour next year. I mean, he crashed out of this year on stage 1, I believe, with Enric Mas. And we also have no sample size of how good Carapaz is right now. I mean, I believe he's 31 years old, and it's going to be his first full year with EF next year. So, in my opinion, that will be an exciting pick for the top 5, and it's going to be another opponent for Remco. And the list goes on as well, but I'm not going to get into that today. But my point here is Remco already has enough competition to compete against for a podium position or even a top 5 position, really. But, however, I think it's pretty obvious that Remco is undoubtedly the 3rd or 4th best contender for the Tour next year. But I would say the only reason we're even talking about this is his inconsistency. He has been super inconsistent. He has had days where he could probably beat Jonas Vingegaard up Alpe d'Huez, or he could be stuck with the sprinters on a mountain stage. And that is a huge problem going into the Tour, because you really don't see Vingegaard, Pogačar, or Roglič having days like that, ever. I mean, sure, last year, Pogačar on the Col de la Loze losing 5 minutes to Jonas, but again, that is really the first time we've seen Tadej like that, and also, it's not like he was with the sprinters. He was still up there with the climbers. He just had a bad day for Tadej. But that's enough of the Tour. Now let's get on to the Giro d'Italia. Now, next year, I'm not entirely sure who's doing it. I just know that Wout is doing it, and probably either Almeida or Ayuso for UAE. Jumbo, it's going to be Wow, I believe, doing the GC. And again, I don't know how to feel about that, but that's going to be in another video. And I believe with Ineos, it's going to be Geraint Thomas again, but he's going to be 38 next year. So again, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about that. So the Giro, it's really wide open for Remco, as long as if he can stay consistent during the Giro, he's got that in the bag. So, but if he has it in the bag, then why should he even bother with the Tour? Why shouldn't he just do a Giro Volta double and just get 2 Grand Tour wins? And there is a big problem about that. And it's a problem that only Remco could have. The hype. He has been hyping up the Tour de France for the last couple years, and everybody around the world is just waiting every year for that Remco debut. And every year he says, I'm not doing it. So, and this year, he said he's going to do it next year. So, it's kind of a bit hard to back out of that with the hype Remco has. Because here's the thing, if he was a rider like Richard Carapaz or Egan Bernal even, nobody would really pay attention to it. People would just be like, oh, okay. But with Remco, I mean, he is a generational talent, it seems. He has dominated the World Tour for the last couple years, and he still has yet to make his Tour de France debut. Now, Pogačar made his debut when he was 21 years old, and Remco is going to be 24, making his debut. I mean, that is a big difference. And another problem with that is that I don't know if Remco is ready for the Tour yet. He still has to get that consistency up. He still has to prove that he can compete with Jonas and Tadej in the high mountains. I mean, in the Vuelta, he proved that he couldn't do it, and he cracked big time against Jonas and Roglic. So, in my opinion, I think it's best for him that he does the Giro Vuelta double for the next season and then do the Tour in 2025. But I think that would take a pretty big hit into his reputation, and people will probably think, oh, he's scared to do it. Oh, I don't think he's probably good enough to do the Tour, which I don't think that's true. I just think yeah, I do think he is a bit scared, but he is definitely good enough to do it. He has the potential, undoubtedly. But again, consistency is a big thing for him. He can compete with anybody he wants on a good day, but then he cannot beat a single person when he has a bad day. And that is huge in the Tour de France. And the course in the Giro d'Italia suits him pretty well, as there aren't as many mountain stages, but there are hilly stages, and there's more time trialing than in the Tour. So Remco could take a big hit of time out of contenders in the time trial, and also probably in the hilly stages. So in the mountains, he already has a big enough lead that he can just stick with the other contenders. He doesn't need to attack or make a big move. And as long as if he does that, he could most definitely win the Giro. But the Tour is a completely different story. So to sum it all up, I think that he should do the Giro, and he should also probably do the Tour, but not have high expectations for himself and not going telling the media that he is going to win it. Maybe just it's his debut. He's gonna just see how things are. He's going to see how well he can compete against the best, and in the off season, he's going to train to beat them. And this is more of a practice season for Remco. But I do think that he should do the Giro. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.